Hey, Deserving listeners, it's time to continue watching Darcey and Stacey. Let's get to the show.
And we're dating because we're separated legally and filing for your divorce. And I don't really feel like your family truly knows who I am. I feel like I've been in the background a little bit. I've heard my name here and there. I don't intrude. I'm waiting for that true introduction.
All right. So this is sort of in the mid zone in terms of what I would say to be a healthy communication. That for Darcey, she is saying, look, I've introduced you to all my family, and I feel like you've kept me in the background. All right. So she's not being too hostile in this instance. And it's pretty clear, I think, probably to Georgie what she's saying. But again, understanding those baseline initial emotions having to do with attachment, security, and communicating those, at least in the midst of what she's saying, would help. She could say, okay, what am I feeling right now? Well, the fact that I've introduced him fully to all of my family, and he's met all of my family, and I don't even know if his family know about me that much. I feel worried that Georgie might not be fully into me as much as I am into him. And that I'm also hurt because I'm putting all this effort. I'm 110% in this relationship, and I feel like I'm only getting 80% from him, and that hurts my feelings. You just communicate that. Give Georgie a chance to rise to the occasion and show his love and care and compassion and empathy for you. So to communicate it that way, to say, honey, I love you, and I believe you love me too. And I've introduced you to all my family, and so far I felt like you haven't really introduced me to your family. And I don't know what's going on there. Maybe there's something else going on there, but without any information, it kind of feels like you're not as into this relationship as much as I am. I'm not saying that that's true. It just kind of feels that way to me. And I don't want to pressure you. I don't want to make you do anything that you don't want to do, but I'm just bringing that up. Okay, then Georgie, and who knows what's going on with him, but he could say something like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry about that, and that makes sense to me. The reason why I haven't introduced you to my family doesn't have anything to do with my love for you. It just has my relationship with my family is kind of weird. They have a thing about Americans, or they always wanted me to marry someone from my hometown, or I've introduced them to women in the past and then kind of regretted it because we would break up and then my mom gets upset, or, whatever it is that Georgie says. Or maybe Georgie's just like, I really love our relationship, and for me to introduce you to my family, I have a really high bar, and I want to get there, but it's more in maybe the 3-month point, not the 3-week point. So for sure, if this continues over the next few months, I will absolutely introduce you to my family. And believe me, I love you and I want to be in this relationship, but, can you accommodate me in that way? Who knows what's going on with Georgie. Now, maybe Georgie's like secretly, or I don't know, not so secretly, not into Darcey. Who knows? He could say that too. Just be like, okay, we have to have a conversation, not with your sister and her husband in the same room, but Darcey, we've been going out for 3 weeks so far. I don't know how long it's been. Maybe it's been longer than that, but however long it's been, not a long time. I am 100% in this relationship, but I've made that mistake before, where after 6 months, I felt like this is the one, and then I realized it wasn't the one. So I just want to give this some time. I'm loving what's happening, and I'm sorry that you're already at that point where you're ready to commit and have this be a forever thing. And I want it to be a forever thing, but I'm just trying not to think about that because I know I've made mistakes in the past. So I hope that you trust me, and I hope that you'll give me some time before I can get to that level where I'm absolutely sure. And I don't know, but I think it'll be like in a year or so. But do not worry. I love you, and I want to be, who knows what's going on with Georgie in this situation. Or maybe even lower than that, Georgie would be like, honey, I hear that you're really into me. I'm really into you, but I don't know if I'm at the same pace with this as you are. You know, you're at this pace, and I'm sort of a shallower curve here. And I'll probably get to your level at some point in the future, but I like to take things slow. My past or whatever, it's just my preference. So I hope that's okay with you. That's all right as well. You know, and then maybe that creates some insecurity for Darcey. She can say something like, wow, that's hard to hear. You know, and you can have those kinds of conversations instead of, I don't know, accusing each other, trying to hide things, making other people feel pressured. Because right now, Darcey, without explaining the full breadth of her emotional experience, she is coming across, and I would label it as kind of controlling. She's basic and unreasonably critical. She's essentially saying, Georgie, you're a bad partner because you haven't introduced me to your family, and you better introduce me to your family. And I'm not interested in how you feel about it. I'm not interested in the backstory on that. I'm not interested in your pace in this relationship. This just needs to happen right now, or else I'm going to get angry. She's not saying that in a super aggressive way, but that's essentially what she's saying. And so let's watch this.
You know, we've had little tit for tats over things that I'm like questioning because I'm like, okay, maybe I don't know him as well as I thought I did. But it's not only that, it's social media. That can affect relationships. It's affected yours. I can't stop thinking about who's leaving this fire emoji to you. I'm stressing out because I'm thinking and feeling the worst right now.
All right. Understandable. It's okay. A lot of people have those feelings. Get to the feelings, communicate that. Don't get aggressive. Don't get controlling. Don't get accusatory. Georgie has done nothing wrong. He's done nothing wrong. Zero. That's what I mean by zero. He's done nothing wrong. And to recognize that and to say, okay, I'm having feelings and I feel like they're real. I've tried to suppress them. They're not going away. How do I communicate? How do I feel okay with those feelings and communicate them without being accusatory towards Georgie, without unnecessarily making him feel like he's done something wrong, because he has done nothing wrong.
And I've had past relationships like this, and I don't want to feel that again. I know he's different than Tom and Jesse, but it's just I expected more out of him.
Yikes. What? You expected what do you mean? More out of him? So if I'm going to interpret what she's saying, essentially, to break this down, Darcey is saying, I expected him to have no prior relationships to me. I expected him to have such horrible relationships that he's not friends with any of his exes. I've talked about this before. If you meet someone that is friends with their exes, that's a good sign. And to meet someone that isn't friends with any of their exes, not a good sign. Now, it's not a guarantee either way, but if you meet someone like Georgie who is friends with his exes, then that's a good sign, because that means that their relationship wasn't so bad that they are no longer friends. Now, you don't have to stay friends with your exes, but typically, if you've had a number of relationships, there's going to be a number of them that have the opportunity to continue to be friends, at least friendly, right? Where you talk once a year or you check in over Instagram once every 3 months or something. So according to Darcey's, I expected more from him. I expected him to not have any relationships in the past, or 2, have such bad relationships that he's not friends with any of them, or 3, to preemptively tell all of the previous women, by the way, don't comment at all on my Instagram because that crap is bad. Okay, expected more from him. What does that mean exactly?
He can look at my phone. I've looked at his phone. You posted that new picture, fire emoji. Who's this person? He's done it to me too. And when I question the person that left him a fire emoji, he's telling me he dated the girl. Well, that's a little different. Yeah, that's what I thought.
I never replied them with hearts and kisses and whatever, Did I put the same back? No.
Right. So Georgie probably feels hurt that he's being accused of something that he didn't do. He's basically being accused of cheating on Darcey, I guess, because one of his girlfriends who happens to be a friend whom he hasn't probably even seen physically in years and has no interest in seeing physically, in meaning face-to-face, it's just over Instagram. He's being accused of doing something wrong. And so that's going to hurt his feelings. It's like, I'm a bad person because this ex-girlfriend of mine who's a friend put just fire emojis. That's it. Just 3 fire emojis. Like, what's the big deal? I'm a bad person. I'm a bad partner. What did I do wrong? And so he transforms that hurt into anger, and now he's getting defensive and he's getting hostile back. And now, Darcey, you have actually created a situation where the relationship actually is threatened. You went from a situation where there was nothing wrong, and due to lack of awareness that therapy could have helped with, more than one session, by the way, could have helped with this. Now you've actually engaged in behaviors that are way down the process line, hurt and fear, anger, annoyance, conclusions, attack, vibe and tone. That's the tone that she has with him and the accusations and the sort of paranoia is the end result of a long process, emotionally speaking. And so she's just focusing on that and just manifesting that. And now he is being hurt and he's getting angry. Now they're hurting each other as they continue to fight. And this will actually push him away. And he'll be like, she's crazy. She's psycho. One person, a girlfriend of mine from years ago, put 3 fire emojis on a picture on Instagram, and the world came to an end because of that. Like, no consideration that I'm showering you with compliments and I love you and all the nice things, and why am I in this relationship if this is what I'm going to get? Is this a sign? And then the fear sets in of like, is this a sign of things to come? Am I going to get this in a lot more often and higher degree in the future? Is she going to control everything about me? Is this just the beginning? Am I, then you're afraid. And anyway, so it's just hard as a therapist to watch this play out in such, destructive ways.
Doesn't matter, okay? The girl has a new baby. He said a year ago they talked. And she's leaving a fire emoji. She's got a new baby. Is that your baby? Oh.
Wait, what? So disregard everything I've said thus far. This ex-girlfriend is pregnant or has a new child, and it's his. That's not the end of the world, too. It's perfectly fine to have previous relationships in which you have kids. I mean, Darcey has previous relationships. She has kids. But being upfront about that and potentially obscuring that is lying and worrisome. But I don't know what they're saying. Let's get back to this.
The girl has a new baby. Oh! And he said a year ago they talked. Is that your baby? Oh. Do you have a baby, yes or no?
Like the last time we had sex was 7 years ago. Like, I don't know.
Right. So I thought they had other data besides that. Okay. It's normal to get worried and to not be aware of your attachment emotions, but this level of accusation. So if I'm understanding the situation right, Darcey saw these 3 fire emojis. She investigates. He says, yeah, I talked to her about a year ago. And Darcey looks on her Instagram, this woman's Instagram, sees a toddler or a young child, infant, and says, is that his baby? Based on just that information, that a year ago they talked, she has a baby. And now you're going to accuse him of he's the father and he's lied about it all, that he's a total lech who's been lying. Again, maybe they have other data to back this up, but if I'm understanding right, that's the situation. Okay, I don't know. Maybe we'll see more information. But if I have it right, this is a total expected result if you're unaware of your emotions and you go to anger and you're even kind of unaware of your anger and you're just going to the conclusions, then all sorts of weird things can happen in your head when you're not aware of your process and you don't have a therapist to talk about it with. Because a therapist would say, okay, tell me about your thoughts, tell me about your feelings, and they eventually a therapist would be, okay, let's break this down. It's okay to have that emotion. Let's stick with that emotion. You're going to some pretty wild conclusions, which is natural to do, but let's stick with the emotion. What's the fear there? Tell me more about that fear. Well, I'm afraid he's going to leave me. Okay, that's totally normal, and there might not be a way to alleviate that feeling. You're in the beginning of a relationship. It would be unreasonable for you to believe that you know him and you can really trust him at this stage because you just started dating not that long ago. So let's just live with that insecurity. Maybe there are some ways to alleviate some of it. You can ask for reassurance, but to transform all that into accusation and aggression and paranoia will probably for sure end the relationship. So it's not that you're wrong, because maybe he is lying to you. Maybe he does have secret children. Maybe he is going to leave you. There's just no way to know. You're just going to have to give that some time. So let's see how this goes.
You told me you
The
talked to
baby
her a
maybe
year
just
ago.
come right now. Like,
You told me she was married, and where's her husband? Because I don't see one.
yeah, from
one
talking,
man.
from one talking, she's
So
not
is
gonna
that your
get
baby?
talking in
Is
Instagram.
that
she's
your
not gonna
baby?
get
Why is
pregnant.
she with her husband?
Did you ever get pregnant by
Oh.
someone talking Instagram?
Do you have a child with this person? I'm gonna.
Okay, so I don't know if this is what's it seems. I don't know if they're just editing it this way, but it seems like he's avoiding the question as to whether or not he has a kid. I think that's what Darcey is picking up on. If I were there, I would just be like, okay, Darcey, let's bring it down a couple of notches. I understand you're worried. He's being a little shady, but maybe he's just shutting down because he's upset about the accusation. But why don't you just get to the core of the matter and ask him, a direct question? She might, I just want to know. Okay, let's bring it down. Well, I want to know if he has a kid with this woman, and I might help say, well, are you worried about him having a kid at all that he hasn't told you about? Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. Okay, just ask that question. Okay. Georgie, do you have any kids? Now, what I would try to mitigate, because I've had, I do these conversations all the time in couples therapy. If I had time, I would coach her on try to have some empathy about this question. But if I didn't have time, I would say to Georgie, as she asked that question, I would say, Georgie, you've done nothing wrong, so don't feel accused. And she's having some fears, which is okay. And you could really alleviate those fears if you reassure her that you don't have any kids. Not that it's wrong to have kids, but it would be potentially a threat if you have not revealed to her the full scope of your history or something, and that's what she's concerned about. So do you want to talk about that right now? That kind of thing. Anyway, so let's see what happens.
I'm sorry. Why are you blushing?
Because
You're looking a little nervous right now, honey.
Because I'm
Say it,
so-
point blank. Yes or no? Do you have a child with her? Yes or no?
No, I don't know how this come in Darcey's head that I have a baby. Just because this girl leave fire emoji on my page. She was dealing with that in the past where they lied to her, but overreacting for no reason.
Something just doesn't seem right. I just feel like I don't know enough about him, is what I'm saying.
All right. So she's clearly in distress. She's clearly triggered by her past traumas. We've seen this before, and that's okay. And if she had more sessions with a therapist, maybe she would be aware of what's happening for her right now, aware of her attachment insecurities. I will say that the session with the therapist, at least what Darcey took away from it was, I deserve better, if I remember right. And I remember having that concern of no, that's fine that you walked away from one session with a therapist and you conclude that you deserve to be treated well. It's great. That's a good message to have. But that's not the main message that Darcey needs to have. The main message that everyone needs to have is, what are your primary emotions and what are your attachment insecurities? What are your attachment reactivities? What are your attachment threats? And then what is your physiological and cognitive response to those threats? And how do you become aware of that? How do you communicate that? How do you solve that? What's reasonable to solve? What's not reasonable to solve? Anyway, so in this moment, she's like, okay, fine. He answered the question that he doesn't have a kid. But this is just the tip of the iceberg of a bigger problem that I have, which is like, I don't know anything about his history. And when I don't know things, I start inserting things in there, bad things. People do this all the time. I would run into this a lot with parents. And when I treated families in my early career, I would explain this a lot to teenagers. I find myself explaining this a lot because in a lot of family conflict, when you have a teenager that is having behaviors that are troublesome to a parent, the kid might be staying out all night or staying out past curfew or something like that. And I would be very clear to the teenager. I'd be like, okay, so when you're at a party or you're just out with your friends, you're just playing video games at a friend's house, and your parents are wondering where you're at. You know where you're at because you're just playing video games with one of your friends down the street. But your parents don't know where you're at. And when they text you or when they expect you to contact them and you don't, and there's a black void of information, they will fill in that black void with you're dead, or you're being assaulted, or you're being arrested, or someone kidnapped you. That's what they fill into the darkness, because that means they're good parents. Good parents are supposed to be paranoid about their kids on some level. Good parents are supposed to worry when they don't know where their kids are, particularly when there are reasons to have some worries because, in the past you did get into some trouble. And so your parents have some worry about some rationale around that worry. So you could really solve your problem as a teenager by filling in that darkness with reality by texting your parents and saying, I'm at Johnny's house and we're playing Fortnite. Then the darkness is now gone and a picture comes into their mind of like, oh, okay, he's sitting on a couch playing Fortnite with his friends and I can relax and I'm not going to freak out anymore. And so kids have empathy for that. And I would help parents to communicate that because a lot of times parents would just be yelling at their kids like, you broke the rule, instead of like explaining, look, I love you and I'm terrified when I don't know where you're at. And when I get terrified, I get desperate, which means I'm going to yell at you or I'm going to ground you or whatever, when in reality, I just love you so much that I can't stand not knowing where you're at. And so you could solve that problem by just telling me where you're at. And then, I won't ground you for those infractions if you just check in, like, let me know. I don't have any interest in controlling and ruining your fun. I just want to be able to get through my day not having to think that you're dead in a ditch somewhere. Anyway, so with her, Darcey, she doesn't know much about his past life. And so she's filling it in with a bunch of paranoid details because she has been traumatized in the past relationally, maybe going back to her early childhood, who knows. And there's nothing wrong with that. And you can own that. You can be like, so, Georgie, I don't know much about your history. You don't seem to share very much of it. That's totally fine. I'm not accusing you of anything. I like to share I'm an open book. You don't seem to be an open book. That's okay. But the fact that you have that style means that I get paranoid sometimes about there's something there that's bad. And so, one, you could really help me out by telling me more about your history. And two, if there is something bad, just tell me now. I don't want to find out about it down the line. Just if there is something bad, if you do have a kid or, I don't know, anything, you've had 3 wives or, just tell me now because it's the uncertainty that really gets to me. Okay. It's a request. It's reasonable. It's okay. Instead of screaming at him in this moment, which is going to push him away, and then you really are looking at an attachment threat.
Looking a little nervous right now, honey. Say it, point blank, yes or no. Do you have a child with her? Yes or no?
No, she was dealing with that in the past where they lied to her. But acting this way, it's kind of overreacting for no reason.
Something just doesn't seem right. I just feel like I don't know enough about him, is what I'm saying. Baby, no baby, I need to get to the bottom of things.
The other way of looking at this is that she has attachment insecurities based on past traumas, And when you have attachment insecurities, there's many different methods there are many tactics and methods that our egos will use to alleviate that fear. And there are many, but one that is available to all of us is to test the individual. Okay, I'm feeling like I don't know if this person really loves me, and I'm worried that they're going to leave me. Well, one way to see it yes or no, because I want to know, is I'm going to push him away, I'm going to accuse him, and then if he stays and if he is nice to me, then I will be reassured. Because I was mean to him. I created a whole drama, and yet he still stayed, and he was loving towards me, and he cared about me. So, wow, that really proves to me that he must really love me. He passed the test, right? This is largely unconscious. Sometimes it can be a conscious tactic, but usually it's unconscious. So the person will drum up this drama, hoping to test the other person, and thus there will be direct evidence by tonight that he does love her and is invested in the relationship. Instead of doing it more directly, of saying, I'm just afraid I'm going to lose you. And so let me explain why we resort to these destructive, hostile ways of testing other people. Because there's other ways of testing someone, just being like, do you love me? Because I feel like you don't love me. There's nothing wrong with you. This has nothing to do with you've been more than nice and kind and normal and non-dramatic with me. But I just have thoughts like, you just don't love me. And do you love me? Can you reassure me? Okay, that's another way of testing. Okay, so why would we test by drama and accusation and hostility and aggression and paranoia? Why would we test that way instead of testing in a way that is owning your feelings and asking for help? Well, so if you test this way, in the vulnerable way, and it goes badly, and the person's like, yeah, no, I don't really love you. Well, you have laid your heart out on a platter, and they've smashed it. They've thrown the platter down the stairs. Whereas if you're angry, you're putting up a wall. So you're testing, but you're on the other side of a wall. You're like throwing grenades over the wall. And then if there's an assault and a rejection, you're like, well, screw them anyway, okay? And it feels in the moment less vulnerable and less scary. It's less scary to throw grenades over the wall than it is to have your heart on a platter and say, do you love me? Okay? So we're predicting, like, well, if this goes badly, it's better to throw grenades over the wall than to have my heart on a platter. But this is the problem. When we throw grenades over a wall, they will reject us eventually. They will leave us eventually. Or at least in the moment, they'll make us feel like they don't care. You notice for him, he got defensive, and then he switched to a different tactic of, this is just silly. He's giving that vibe of like, this is silly, and I'm not, you're silly, and you're weird, and I don't know what's happening. You're overreacting. There's another tactic that he could take of, honey, what's going on? Tell me. Let's hug it out. What's going on for you? I love you. Ask me any question. What question do you have? Just stop hurting my feelings. Like that's another tactic. He's not doing that, but that's understandable. I mean, he's being yelled at for what exactly, right? Anyway, let's continue watching.
Darcey, where are you going? Darcey, what's going on?
I'm sick of it. It makes me feel like he's lying about something. Oh, it's a push.
So she's saying she's sick of it. Now, this points to potential problems that we haven't been hearing about to date, which is that she has been asking for information or intimating that she wants him to share more information about his life, and he has been coy about sharing. And now it's exploding in this moment. Who knows? I could see that happening. There are other ways to communicate that, but maybe that's another factor.
Sick of it. Tired of it. God, Darcey, come here. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. No, it's not. Days.
The other possibility is that she's intoxicated. There was alcohol. and she's losing her faculties. It happens to all of us, particularly when we have traumas. Some of you might actually know what this feels like, or you might know someone like this, where past a certain threshold of intoxication, our ability to compartmentalize things becomes compromised, and all of our traumas just come flooding out of us. And we will feel very bad, and we will have moments like this. We've seen Darcey do this actually before. Now that I remember, the first date she had with Tom, she had that kind of experience. There's nothing wrong with having emotion. There's nothing wrong with traumas coming forward. But what this might indicate is that she needs more than one session of therapy. All right, well, that does it for that episode in which I watch Darcey and Stacey and react to it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Also, if you haven't subscribed and you want to subscribe, do that. Or hit the bell if you want to get notifications. Also, hit the like button. That's always nice. It gives me self-esteem. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.